Oh, there's Madison. Hey, Madison. We got Amy joining. Hey, Amy.
Welcome to day 5. You made it of the 5-day Chief of Staff Challenge. Let's give it up for your host, the one and only Tyler Paris.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the 5th and final day of our 5-day Chief of Staff Challenge. If you want, you can come off mute and say, oh, I know. I wish we could just keep geeking out on this stuff, but we do still have today. And for this half hour today, I still want to give you some immediately applicable tools, tips, frameworks, things that can help you do your job better. So that by the end of today, you should now have at least 5 new ways to add value for your exec and leadership team, one from each day of this challenge. The savvy among you will have found even more, I suspect. And of course, as you know, the idea in this 5 days is to give you just a taste of what we cover in our mastermind cohorts so that you know there's real value there and it is well worth the investment. So, John, do you want to go ahead and cue that video up again, please?
Here you go.
Hi, Tyler Paris here. I'm so excited to kick off our 4th Chief of Staff Mastermind cohort, a year-long learning cohort that combines the power of Chief of Staff specific training, group and one-on-one coaching, and peer advisory. Don't just take my word for it, why it's an awesome learning opportunity. Take it from participants themselves.
I really enjoyed participating in the cohort this past year. It was a great opportunity to learn and grow from my peers.
I get great energy from making connections like these, where we support each other.
I'm excited to be part of this cohort and be amongst my peers.
And it really helped me encourage my leadership team to have those tough conversations with folks we didn't want to lead.
It was amazing how much we had in common despite coming from completely different industries.
Overall, it's a win-win for everyone if you get involved in the cohort. I definitely recommend it.
Enough said. Don't miss out on astronomical ROI. Sign up for Cohort 4 today and become the leader your organization needs and you want to be. All right, you don't want to miss it. Today, I want to open our session really by having each of you chat what question or challenge related to decision support, if you could answer it or overcome the challenge, would make the biggest difference for you, your exec, or your leadership team. So you can go ahead and drop that in the chat. I'll highlight those as they come in. Just let us know what big questions or challenges you have around decision support that would make the biggest difference for you.
Well, Tyler, decision support, like I'm one of those decision makers. I got to know all the options before I make a decision.
Good to know. I don't know if you've ever done the insights training. They talk about the different ways people make decisions, and it's one of those working styles assessment kind of things.
I think in coronavirus, though, like we've learned how to make snap decisions, right? Like, because you don't have that much time. Thank you, Liz, is that sometimes you just got to make that decision from your gut.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Delegation by founders to allow others to make decisions. Yes. Let go. Funding, resourcing availability. That's a good one. No clear decision owner. Ouch.
Well, decisions by committee. Yikes.
Yeah. It's funny. We cover a lot of that in our segment on power. Where we talk about how to use power for good and not go to the dark side. And we talk about when there's a time to actually just decide and make unilateral decisions, even if you typically have a culture of shared ownership and that sort of thing. So that's an interesting dynamic for sure. Clarity on the end goal, keeping everybody focused on that. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Tyler, but what if your boss is Darth Vader? It's probably not funny. Somebody's boss really is Darth Vader.
I was gonna say that might be too soon. Agree with Liz, no clear decision owner or ownership of the process. So process owners are really important for sure. So This is great. I appreciate these. They're all great examples. And I don't know if we'll cover every single scenario in the time we have today, but these are the kinds of topics we definitely dive into deeper on our cohort. But for today, I think we might get at some of these because poor decision-making has littered history with disasters such as the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, the financial collapses of 2008 in the United States and 2011 in Europe. Going back in time a little further, some famous examples like the grounding of Swiss Air, major setbacks at Marks and Spencer in the UK, and also British Airways somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then you go back to the Space Shuttle Challenger, a very famous example. One of the reasons I do the work I do with chiefs of staff is that I really believe we are the last line of defense against groupthink. And we sit in a really special place among the leadership team in terms of our ability to influence and facilitate discussions that lead to better decisions, because everyone else on the team might not be might be incented to stifle their true opinion. And it might not be politically expedient for them to raise dissenting points of view. Now, hopefully you work in a culture where you have that psychological safety. And if not, hopefully you're able to counsel your exec on creating that culture. But if a lot of folks meet in an organization where that's not the case. And so I always try to meet folks where they are, whether or not you've earned that spot at the table yet. I'm hoping today you walk away with a couple of tools and frames for thinking about decision support for your principal, exec, and leadership team, so that you'll be more strongly positioned to not only be that last line of defense, but a proactive force for good decision making. So there's a whole field of study devoted to decision making, decision science. You see MBA programs focused on it, certificate programs. There's a lot of focus in today's business literature on storytelling with data, big data, data science, analytics, and that's all cool. I'm not detracting from those things one bit when I say a lot of teams, and I would include some chiefs of staff, don't answer some more fundamental questions before they get to a lot of that stuff. So our goal today is not really to comprehensively or academically cover decision making. There's so much to it, as even our quick chat of challenges shows. But our goal today will really be to just quickly contextualize decision support for chiefs of staff and address these more fundamental questions. And if we were in a 90-minute cohort meeting, we'd probably divide into small groups and wrestle through your specific decision challenges. You could get peer review on that or peer feedback on that. But today, we're just going to stay in the large group. We're going to heavily rely on whiteboarding. So here we go. One way to get at this really big topic is to essentially assume that decision support in the chief of staff role boils down to 4 questions. What decision do I or we need to make? And when? So do we even need to make a decision right now? How do we know? Number 2, what influences our decision making? So if I were to stop and take a snapshot of the Zoom gallery here or the conference room as we're discussing a decision to be made, what are the dynamics going on here? Like, what are the little thought bubbles that I would put over each leader's head? Like, what do I think is going on in there? How do we frame or queue up a final decision? That's the 3rd question. And then finally, how do we work to ensure genuine commitment to the decision by relevant stakeholders, not just head nodding and agreement on it? Because so many times what I hear from folks is, I thought everybody was agreed in the meeting, but by the time they got to the elevator after the meeting, they were already undermining it, trashing the decision, speaking badly of other people in the room, and then it just stymied. It didn't go anywhere. So we want to avoid that. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to we're going to mark up some whiteboards using some of the annotation tools available to you in Zoom. You could use tools like Mural or Miro for this too. And there are some sophisticated whiteboard tools out there, but today we're simply using PowerPoint as a background. So I'm just going to pull up a slide and we're just going to mark it up. And this is another tool for your virtual facilitation toolbox, hearkening back to Wednesday, that you can try at your next meeting too. In case you need a refresher, or in case your annotate bar doesn't display automatically, once John shares the slides in Zoom, you can look for the View More Options button, as you can see on the graphic here on the screen. On a PC, it's usually in the upper to middle right of your screen. And on an Apple product, you might need to tap the screen to see that menu. You should find an Annotate toolbar, which is this cool little graphic over here where John has the text box selected. And also, since Zoom makes text really small by default, what you might want to do is scroll across to that format button. And if you change it to about a size 40 something, it'll be easier for everyone else to see, but not so big that it takes up the whole screen. So once you've got that set, just click back on that text tool, and then you can start putting in text boxes in a minute. So, and I'll tell you how to do that. So as you can see, what decision do we need to make and when? I've taken one of those high level questions and I've put on this slide, and all you got to do is write down any additional questions, methodologies, tools, or techniques you think you'd need to use to arrive at the answers to that question. Okay. So for example, under this, I might say, further questions might be, do we need to decide now? And why, or how do we know? Something like that. There can be lots of other questions. I'm not suggesting that's the only answer. Or you could put methods, tools, and techniques, like I'd use an Eisenhower matrix, or I'd do root cause analysis, or I'd do the 5 whys. I know somebody was talking about keeping them focused on the end goal. Let's make sure that's the right goal, whatever those tools are. So we'll take about 2 minutes on each slide. Go ahead and start marking that up with the questions, tools, or frameworks you'd use to answer that question. What decision do we need to make and when?
And again, I'll just last tip here is to make sure and click out of the box so it'll actually show for everybody else. So while you're editing, we can't see it. And then once you click out of the box, we can see it. Who's going to be our first?
Thank you.
You can scribble anything too. We just want to make sure this is working for you. Because we're going to show them this other secret tip about it, Tyler. Right? How many of you miss Post-its? Liz says yes. So one of the things you can do is because I'm in control of this board, I can take the text and move it. Therefore, you can categorize your items and text that you have. So hopefully you're seeing this move sure to click out of your box text moving around. All right, here we go. Let's see. Liz has got the line. Thank you. So Liz, if you go from the line here, from the draw to the text, you can actually then use text instead of line drawing, because I know my handwriting is not Tyler acceptable. My dad was a doctor. It's not my fault. Right? Rule number 1, blame your parents. There we go. Thank you very much. Do we need to decide now? How do we know? Good. Tracy's got a text here, purple on the bottom right. Thank you, Tracy. Great to see you again. I love you got your Friday wear on.
All right.
I'm sorry, how do you make the text bigger again?
Yes, go see this format here on the toolbar. My mouse is moving around. You click format, pick a color, so you can be you, and then pick a font size. We suggest 36 today.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course. Training you with new Chief of Staff skills. By the way, this is available to anyone inside of Zoom.
Yeah, this is just default. Yeah, kind of native technology. What impact do our decision options have? Yes, that's a great question to be asking, right?
That was Wendy, by the way.
Thank you.
That's one of the tips too, is after I click on it, it will tell me who wrote it. Like Liz wrote, who is the ideal customer, Tyler?
Perfect. I love that.
30 seconds. Try and get something on the board. If you also, if the board doesn't work for you, feel free to just put it in chat. I'll do it for you, because I'm here for you.
Excellent.
Doesn't a Chief of Staff need a Chief of Staff, Tyler?
Sometimes. Sometimes. Yeah. Tell you what, we could do it this way too. Raise your hand if you're having issues, or just you can raise your virtual hand or let us know if you're having issues.
Wendy put her first one on here too. Does this align with our strategic goals?
Oh, I love it.
Liz put, yeah, again, she's moving, who's our ideal customer. Oh, that's cool. You can move it too. I think if Liz wrote it, I think she can move it. Laura just added.
Oh, what is the cadence of alignment and debriefing pre and post decision?
There we go, Tyler.
Yeah, I like that.
Jessica just added too.
Which decision project will make the most impact? Yes, great. A gold star in a way, because I think teams really have a hard time prioritizing.
So side note, you can also click stamp and I can give a gold star.
Love it.
All right.
Is this a short-term or long-term issue? Thanks for putting the arrow next to just, yeah. You don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish, right?
Here we go. So Tyler, I've saved it. And for those who are here in Zoom, I have placed it in the chat for you. So if you wanted to keep this, you can now download. All I did was save it, open the folder, and dragged it to the chat. So I think we're good, Tyler. You ready to go to the next one?
One sec. We had a couple priorities, and then we had this one last one. I just want to highlight it for a sec. So what is the impact of not making this decision? And I love that one because a lot of times, one of the little psychological tricks, maybe we talked about this the other day, in helping your teams move forward on something where they're stuck, is to make the fear of inaction worse than the fear of moving forward. So yeah, that's a good one. I like that. So this is great. Go ahead, John. We can move on to the next slide. We've already got our screenshot there. So
all right, we're ready.
all right, wait, that's the same question.
Yep, I'm ready for you now. Moving to next question. Go ahead.
Yes, there we go. What factors are influencing our decisions? So are there environmental factors that we need to consider? When I look around the room or the gallery view in Zoom or Teams, like, what do I think is going on in everybody's head? What's happening here? So
Tyler's going to put one on here too. And what we can do with this, by the way, too, is feel free to, if you are more a verbal person, feel free to unmute. We got 2 minutes to hear some comments about your factors.
Oh yeah, PR, social media, social impact. That's one of the big ones. Yeah. Yeah. Time pressures. John mentioned earlier, we've kind of learned to make some snap decisions too. And maybe there's a time to make unilateral decisions. As much as we love collaboration and consensus building and things like that, opportunity costs. Love that.
Thank you, Wendy.
Wait, was that supposed to be inside the pie chart, or was that different?
I made a clock.
It was a clock. Okay.
I made a clock.
All right. This is why John is my producer, not my graphic designer.
I will crush you all in Pictionary. Just kidding.
Stakeholders. Yes. What stakeholders have we not considered? Yes. Stakeholders. Great.
Yeah, that's a statement.
I love one of my favorite activities, and I think for a lot of people too in our cohort, is we do a map your world activity where you literally map out all the stakeholders that you can think of in your ecosystem, which, if you think about the old school transparencies that they used to use in grade school, that your teacher would wheel in a cart and use this lit up projector and put transparent slides on top. You can just layer different things on top of that map. You can look at communication flows, you can look at workflows, you can look at your strategic relationships. You can do so much with that kind of mapping. So I love the stakeholders being considered here. If there aren't any others, we can go ahead and move on, I think, because it's been a while since I saw any new items pop on here.
Let me save that. I'll put that inside the chat.
Oh, cascading second order effects. Yes.
You got the second one here. I'll save that here too. Thank you so much. I'm going to clear this and move on to your next piece. I'll put it back in the chat here in just a moment. All right, your third question, Tyler, is...
By the way, I'm just proud of you all for even thinking about that. You'd be surprised how many teams do not even think about the second order ripple effects of decisions, which leads to a lot of unintended consequences. So that's awesome. How should we frame the decision to be made? right? So you and your exec, you might have reams of data in front of you. Your team might have teams of data, or sorry, reams of data. How do you distill that? What's the essence of the decision to be made?
Oh, and I'm just recognizing that Jessica was able to download the screenshot herself into a PDF and chat it too. So Jessica, you don't have to say sorry. I'm impressed. That's an advanced, intermediate to an advanced Zoom skill. Let's take 2 minutes on this board again. If you feel free, you can unmute if you also have some additional comments or questions.
Yes, back to what problem are we trying to solve? Great opportunity to do some divergent thinking with everybody, get the ideas on the board, and then start figuring out what it actually is, maybe. Yeah. Cost, time, talent, treasure. Yes. Yeah, you probably frame it to that point. You probably frame your decisions in the language that people need to hear, right? So your engineering department might hear the same issue slightly differently than your legal department, or your head of people, or the comms team, or the product team, et cetera. So what problem are we trying to solve? What's the total addressable market for, how will this impact hiring and retention? Oh my gosh, yes. So much that right now, right?
Thank you to Laura, Liz, and Rob for the comments.
Yeah, if we make this decision, are we going to lead the news tomorrow morning? And in a good way? Is this one time or recurring? Yeah, do we need to put workflows in place for this? If this is going to be an ongoing thing, what do we need to do? How does that affect it? Yeah. All very good thoughts.
Rob, do you want to add one more comment to yours? You feel free to unmute and just let us know, why did you chat that, or why did you whiteboard that?
On the recurring question?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was along Tyler's line. Is this a one-off that we're, solving a pop-up question, or is it long-term, or are we going to keep readdressing this issue?
Yeah.
Got it, Tyler. All right, I already have a snapshot. You ready to go to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. And now your fourth question of the day is...
And final, how do we ensure commitment to the decision made?
How do we ensure commitment? Right? Wait, Tyler, have you ever had a team that took all this time, made a decision, and then unmade it like a day later?
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. By the time we got to the elevator after our leadership team meeting, no sooner than we got to the elevator after the meeting, people were voicing their true opinions that they had not mentioned in the meeting. But that's something to be, in all seriousness, that's what I was saying earlier. We are the last line of defense against that, because I think we can represent some of those points of view if we know about them in advance. We can bring them to the table in a way that, if it's not politically expedient for someone else to bring them, they still get on the table, but maybe that person doesn't have to stick their neck out. We kind of become their heat shield, so to speak. And so it may help give that safety for people to have a way to get their voices known. What are the next steps? Who owns them? I'm a big fan of whiteboarding, just like we're doing here too, by the way. So I'm gonna drop that in here. I'm just gonna say whiteboarding and what I'll call artifacts.
Tyler, what I was thinking about what you're talking about, though, I joked that you said, accountability buddy, but I can tell you that a recent phenomenon in the last 2 years, because of so much virtual, is that I've heard multiple leadership teams, when something controversial comes up, you'll see everyone pick up their phone or reach over to their computer. They're private chatting somebody else, but they're not voicing the concern to the senior leadership team, which means that people don't really solve any problems.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is a big one.
Liz, have you seen anything like that? Do you unmute or share it? I don't know if you've shared any other even outside of your company experiences.
Yeah, even we do it when people are talking senior leadership will side chat and Slack, right, about like what's being discussed to align before, we re-chat with everybody who's on the call.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Liz.
Yeah, check in with folks before the meeting starts. Use that sneaker diplomacy. Absolutely.
Okay, Tyler, I have saved the last one. That's our last whiteboard, right?
I think so.
Back to you, Tyler.
It should be. Yeah, well, that was kind of a quick run through those 4 fundamental questions about things we could be asking at each of those to get at those questions. I mean, before you ever get to looking at what data is the right data for us to collect, you've got to be thinking about, why do we need to make a decision? What's the importance of it? Then you figure out what data to go get. So all the literature today focused on data and analytics and science, data science, and those topics are very good. And by the way, the framing the decision is probably where that, storytelling with data comes in really handy, right? Like you want to cast a vision for what you need to get to as a team and that sort of thing. And so it's not that those things aren't important. I just think those questions are the ones that I've heard from chiefs of staff the most, that are sort of the, everybody's heads down moving 100 miles an hour. Let's pull them up a little bit and ask some of these more fundamental questions before we get to a lot of that other stuff. So, I wanted everybody to get ready to blow up the chat with one thing you're taking away of value from this session today, or maybe not just today, but if you've attended multiple days with us, what's your biggest takeaway from this whole 5-day challenge? And I want you to get your answer ready in the chat, but don't hit enter yet until I tell you to. And we're going to see if we can break Zoom by chatting everything at once in just a minute. But hopefully you have taken real value from today, at least having seen other folks' challenges or some of the whiteboard answers. It's given you some things to think about, and it looks like you have. And in this 5-day challenge as well, on Monday, we talked about a framework for getting role clarity with your exec. On Tuesday, we examined questions you can ask of hard to measure work. So you can articulate the value of what you're doing. On Wednesday, we covered some tactics for more engaging virtual and hybrid meetings. And I gave you another tool today for that with the slide annotations. On Thursday, we explored how questions enable you to be the trusted partner, confidant, and strategic advisor in a way that even just giving advice doesn't. And today we provided some questions that will hopefully help you and your leadership team make and execute great decisions beyond just the tactics of data and analytics. So, in the last 5 days, I've given you some chief of staff specific training. We've done some group coaching. We've done some peer advisory. We've done some small group work. We've done whiteboarding. We've used lots of modes and media to kind of engage you in this content. And I think the only thing we were really missing is one-on-one coaching sessions, and also the experience of the kickoff that we do in our cohort, where we come together as a group, we set shared definitions of success, and that really helps the cohort kind of congeal at the beginning, and also models tools you can use with your leadership team for creating shared context, especially maybe if you're at your offsites. And there's a lot of bonding that happens in those early sessions in the cohort, by the way. Some of you might already be able to use the tools and tips and ideas that you've picked up this week to generate value in your organization. For some of you, that would be more than the cost of entry to the cohort. But if you're getting value out of these topics, we dive a lot deeper on these topics and others in our cohort. So we cover a lot of common challenges like rhythm of the business and getting alignment, both vertical alignment from top to bottom and across organizations, that horizontal alignment. We talk about meeting management and facilitative leadership. We talk about performance and accountability issues. We talk about conflict management and other team dynamics. We cover power, influence, and authority. We also cover timely topics and unfolding realities that come up, like adapting to a pandemic, where there might be or there might not be lots of articles or business literature or classes to help you navigate that situation. So we just brain share. What are we doing? How are you surviving? What are you doing? How are you adjusting and adapting? Or where there's so much literature that you might need someone to help curate it and cut through the BS to get you what you really need to know, like we did with the engagement retention during the Great Resignation, even earlier this week. So, okay, let's blow up the chat with what you're taking away from this 5-day challenge. 1, 2, 3, go ahead and hit enter. And we're going to start reading those. Yeah, the value mapping, proactive force for decision-making. Loved Zoom Annotate, didn't know about that. Value stream mapping too. Okay, good. There's a bunch of us just trying to figure out this role. Exactly. You're not alone, right? That's the whole point of this gathering, this community, is you're not alone. So yeah, the ambiguity is not unique to you. No. Yeah, that's good. Getting clarity. Unique ways to engage in virtual meetings. Excellent, excellent. And I think I saw John put this in the chat, but a little something to sweeten the deal if you want. You've already committed some of your time to this in the 5-day challenge, and to show my appreciation for that as a participation of this challenge. If you sign up by midnight Pacific on the 31st of this month, I can extend our early registration rate, which is $700 off the standard registration. I can do that because having a sense of how many people we're going to have early in the cohort helps me plan. So, I'm not just throwing away value. It's actually that valuable to me to know who's going to be in and who's out. So if you want to, there's a promo code, 5-day Chief of Staff challenge that John put in the chat there. And if you want to talk more, here's a link for you to find a 15-minute slot on my calendar. I can answer any questions you have. And for those of you joining us by Zoom, I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes if you have Q&A after this. For everyone else, I look forward to seeing you all at our April Chief of Staff Mixer on the Empowerment Target, and then again on May 3rd at our cohort kickoff. So until then, let me know if I can be your go-to resource, and be well.
Thank you, Tyler. You have reached day 5 for the Chief of Staff Challenge. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to chat those links or click on those links to get more information for Tyler Paris, as well as his Cohort 4 coming up this year in 2022. Thank you to all the Chief of Staffs who have attended.
Thank you.